Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go! So this afternoon Putin met with the chief commander of the Russian army Gerasimov. He listened to the usual report of how the things are going. Well, as usual, Gerasimov reported that everything goes well for the Russian army. Our army is on attack in 11 of the directions. We're taking ground in Kursk, we're taking ground in Belgorod, liberating our land. Well, Putin listened to everything of that without the huge encouragement, and he announced a ceasefire from the Russian side. Yeah, that ceasefire wasn't really coordinated with the Ukrainian side, it was a surprise for everyone. So Putin told that from 6 p.m. today there will be no fire from the Russian side, only response fire if Ukrainian side would attack the Russian army. So he told about it just 2 hours before implementation of that so-called ceasefire, which should act for 30 hours till Monday. So yeah, Ukraine agreed before for 30 days of the ceasefire, but Russia agreed just for 30 hours. And just look at this face, absolutely trusted person, I would say. Who calls the ceasefire some sort of the humanitarian need for both of the sides, especially for Ukraine? Was it a humanitarian need really to bomb Kryvyi Rih or Sumy cities, where there were dozens of civilian losses? Putin doesn't care about humanitarian stuff. He bombed the Ukrainian cities, he grounded those. He also bombed Chechnya before he shut down MH17. He shut down Azerbaijani Embraer 190 just recently, not even recognizing responsibility for that act. So do you think that it's really a humanitarian stuff here? No, absolutely. Putin is just making up this theater for one viewer, and that viewer name is Donald Trump, who continued to sugarcoat Russia, saying that he trusts Russia and Biden plus Zelensky are the evil guys. So I expect that American officials will just praise the decision of Vladimir Putin, calling him really a peaceful person. Yeah, by the time Ukraine agreed on a 30-day ceasefire, well before, maybe even 1 month ago, as far as I remember.
Наше решение о пасхальном перемирии покажет, насколько искренней является готовность киевского режима и его желание, да и способность соблюдать договоренности.
So yeah, he says that this short period of ceasefire will show if Ukraine is ready for negotiations and really to achieve the peace. And yeah, we have multiple reports about the Putin ceasefire from the world press. Nevertheless, the air sirens were announced in Kiev and Kiev Oblast. Those were not the Shahid drones. Russia launched the surveillance drone, which was shot down by Ukrainian air defense. But what's about the Ukrainian reaction? Well, President Zelensky also announced the ceasefire from Ukrainian side, so in a way, Ukraine supported this initiative and decided to play this Russian game. Yeah, for sure, Russia is not going to stop the fire completely, and they will renew the full-scale attacks, I expect, on Monday. However, Ukrainian forces were also ordered to stop the fire and film the violation of ceasefire. And yes, they also may respond to protect themselves. My friends, by the way, if you want to support the job that I do almost daily on YouTube, you're very welcome to join me on my Patreon. The link for my Patreon page is available right in the video description below. Thank you so much for supporting my motivation, because only you and yeah, some of the sponsors of the channel keep me running. Well, I have the report from one of our commanders. It is public, so I use the public information only for my videos, even though I have some of the insights, but I cannot share those on my channel. So in Kursk and Belgorod Oblast, the Russian army goes on full-scale attacks. Nothing changed. It seems like Putin was speaking just about Ukrainian territory. About Ukraine, well, definitely the intensity of the fights dropped. It is still not a full ceasefire and fights continue, but yes, intensity gradually slowed down. However, from the report I see that it is not happening elsewhere on the front lines. Still, there are some of the hot spots with heavy fights. The heavy artillery fire was experienced by our soldiers in the Kherson direction, where one of the Ukrainian defense lines was shelled by Russians. But definitely for the moment I'm recording this video, there are no Russian attack Shahid drones in Ukrainian airspace, no Russian missiles, and no those huge convoys going to attack Ukrainian position. Well, hopefully those low-intensity fights, it is really hard to call it definitely a ceasefire, but low-intensity fights will continue to at least a couple of the days of the holy holidays. but I still think that it is the planned Russian provocation to accuse the Ukrainian side for breaking the ceasefire, to show that Ukraine is guilty, Ukraine is out there not willing any sort of the peace. And yes, the main spectator of this theater is Donald Trump, but also Russia calls to Ukrainian part of the Ukrainian society. You see, there are some of the opposition influencers in Ukraine, and sometimes they also support the Russian narratives. So they may say, oh, Zelensky is very bad. Look, Zelensky is against the ceasefire. Look, Ukrainian army under Zelensky command is not going to extend the ceasefire. Or they broke the ceasefire, but in fact Zelensky this evening called to extend the ceasefire for 20 or 30 more days, he said, adding that 30 hours is just there for the headlines. So if Russia really wants to achieve the ceasefire, it should be expanded beyond the 21st of April. So yeah, I'm sure that it's just the political operation from Kremlin, maybe also coordinated with the White House officials, for them to officially accuse Ukraine and abandon Ukrainian military support even. In this case, Russia is absolutely the winner, and judging on the news which were coming for the last couple of days, I think that this so-called ceasefire is well organized, but Zelensky also played his own game, agreed on the ceasefire because, yeah, Ukraine is the peaceful country, we need peace, so we agreed to any initiative, even if it is coming from the Russian side. They didn't expect that. Plus, Ukraine put the proposal for the long-lasting peace, not just for a couple of days. No, it's not serious. So now again, Putin has to do something. He should extend this peace deal. But I think he will just blame Ukraine and restart the attacks. Putin is already praying in his temple. Guys, this church has nothing to do with the God. It might really look like a Christian church, but they praise the Russian war crimes. Yeah, I've checked the news, and so far we don't have the reaction of Donald Trump on this Easter truce proposed by Russia. And yes, again, it is definitely hard to tell that it is definitely a ceasefire because the intensity of the fights dropped down. You see, the front lines, they're really huge, and it is hard to control this entire territory. There should be the independent monitoring groups deployed, and Russia plus Ukraine should agree on this ceasefire. But Russia just announced it on itself without any sort of the coordination with the Ukrainian side. But even here, Ukraine supported this idea. That's why, my friends, I don't really think that it is the lasting ceasefire, not even saying about some sort of the peace deal. It was not possible to achieve the ceasefire, then it was this small border with the Russian-controlled separatists and Ukraine. But now with this long border, I don't think it's real. Plus, Russia continued to demand even so-called denazification of Ukraine and to get what they wrote in their constitution, full Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, including also Crimea. They want Ukraine to recognize those territories as the new Russian ones. And yes, even the Russian Z military bloggers, they agree with my idea that it is not the lasting peace, it is not the lasting ceasefire, it is not even a ceasefire. They all say that it is not the interest of Russia to stop the war right now. Well, maybe like one more variant that Russia accumulated, definitely the forces for the spring campaign. They started the massive assaults all around the front lines, but most of their attacks just failed. They used tons of the armored vehicles, tanks and motorcycles especially. But it didn't help, they were absolutely annihilated with just a very tiny success on the front lines, taking maybe a couple of villages for the last week, so Russian army needs reorganization, and for that they need the ceasefire time to send the reinforcements. And by the way, here on the picture you may see the Russian battle train, full metal construction, yes, welded around with those armor plates, but nevertheless it was stopped and captured by Ukrainian drones and artillery. And yes, one more profit for Russia to announce the ceasefire, because Ukrainian society, it really supports the Ukrainian military, purchasing lots of the drones. So if there is the ceasefire, people might donate less to support the Ukrainian military. As it was, for example, with Donald Trump, that he was really concentrated on peace deal with Ukraine, there were less and less volunteers coming to Ukrainian army. But now we have a little boost of the volunteers, of the soldiers. However, with the ceasefire, it might drop down. Nevertheless, I still think that ceasefire itself is very profitable for Ukraine too, because Ukraine might accumulate the forces for defense using the Western military support, which is still coming, by the way, from the United States of America, thanks to the previous administration of the White House. The new one, well, it doesn't want to help. 100% the best news for today is not the ceasefire or something, but the exchange of the Ukrainian and Russian prisoners of war. 277 Ukrainians came back to Ukraine from the Russians' custody, where some of them spent 3 freaking years. Just imagine 3 years in a Russian prison. Guys, it is just crazy what our guys had to face there, with poor medical treatment, with tortures and limited food. Luckily, all of those soldiers are at home, so this day I would consider a superb one. So my final thoughts about peace: I really want it to happen. I really want this war to be stopped, but judging on the Russian rhetorics in general, they are not interested in that, and they use peace and ceasefire just to play around and to create this some sort of the theater of absurd. Just, to make someone across the ocean to believe in their intentions, but their intentions are just to conquer Ukraine, that's it. Nevertheless, we're gonna see how it goes for the next couple of days. Those would be decisive, and the next week, I would say, is decisive one for the peace negotiations in general and for the military support of Ukraine by the United States. And yes, one more important thing for us in our informational war, that Russia launched the RT Academy, yes, using the resources of their RT channel. Yeah, this site is blocked in the country I am staying in. Well, I could have used VPN, but my idea is to tell you here the general idea that Russia wants to create the new generation of the pro-Russian bloggers and journalists. So basically, they want to expand their propaganda in Africa, in European countries as well, all across the globe, really. So yeah, they have this online course and they want to build many more of the young Tucker Carlsons to propel the pro-Russian narratives, but we have the response on that. For example, my mate operator Starsky, he also has his channel about the war in Ukraine. Well, he introduced the alternative platform where you can grow as the pro-Ukrainian or pro-democracy blogger. Basically, it is a free school for the content creators, and you may see there are many of the influencers, some of them you may know, and I also took part in that. I'm not the founder of this free school, it's all about operator Starsky and his side, but I'll participate as some sort of the expert somehow. I don't know how, well, Starsky will tell me for sure, but I will be there in this big team. I think that it is really a good initiative and it is very important for our informational war. So actually it is called the Propaganda Study Institute, where you may become also the influencer. You may also apply there, it is for free, and I'll put the link for it in the video description just below. So yeah, we'll see how it works. At least someone tries to create an alternate, and I would gladly participate everything of that, because pro-Ukrainian YouTubers, we're not like competitors really on YouTube as usual. No, the more of us there, the better it is for the general cause of democracy. But yeah, unfortunately we don't have the large sums of money that Russia uses for their own propaganda, but I think that people matter more than money. And now, my friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.